Okay. Let me see if I can send to you real quick.
It's live now. Good evening and welcome to District 5's office, Commissioner Marvin Arrington's Winter District Dialogues, where we will present the 2025 budget for Fulton County government. And without further ado, Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marvin Arrington Jr., Fulton County Commissioner for District 5. Glad that you've taken this time to join us. We're here today to talk about the proposed 2025 budget, and it is proposed because we want to receive input from you. This is your Fulton County 2025 budget, and so we want to make sure that we include your priorities as part of the budget and that we hear from you so that we can make sure to convey your concerns and your priorities to staff and to the other commissioners. So thank you all for being here tonight to join us. I do want to let you know we have a few more of these budget town halls scheduled. We have one more tomorrow scheduled at Wolf Creek. So we hope that you all will join us there at the Wolf Creek Library Tuesday, December 10th. And is from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then on Thursday, December 19th, we have another proposed budget town hall at the South Annex on Stonewall Tail Road. So we hope that you all will join us for these, for your 2025 District 5 budget hearings. We are also in the middle of our Dads, Daughters, and Dolls plus Sons Toy Drive. Every year for the past 10 years, we have worked with the sheriff's office to give toys to the children of inmates at the Fulton County Jail. Just because their parents may be incarcerated doesn't mean that the children should not have a good Christmas. So we invite you to join us in this effort in ensuring that all children receive gifts for Christmas. So we thank you very much. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over um, to Sabrina McTeer, who's a budget manager in our finance department, and she will give us the breakdown of the budget. And then after we uh, hear from her, we will open it up for questions and answers. So thank you again for being here. Again, this is your 2025 Fulton County budget. Thank you. Sabrina?
Thank, thank you so much, Commissioner Arrington. I wanted to bring greetings on behalf of the Finance Director, Hakeem Oshikoya, and I wanted to thank you, Commissioner Arrington, for the opportunity to speak and to also further explain the budget. I will jump right into it. Let me go into presentation mode. Okay, here we go. So the what I plan to discuss tonight will include three things. One, it will include where we are right now. Two, the proposed 25 budget. And as Commissioner Arrington emphasized, it is proposed and it is subject to the will of not only the board, but the citizens. And then finally, I wanted to leave you all with resources so that you are an engaged citizen. And this information is very high level, but if you are interested in receiving further detail, I am going to show you where on our open transparency website you are able to see all the way down to what has been paid, what is proposed, and the categories in which they are proposed. So first, where we are right now. based on 2024 and how the budget was adopted, we ended last year, which is the end of 2023. So we began 2024 with $227 million in fund balance. I can delve further, but I am happy to have any conversation with someone that wants to know what exactly is fund balance. And what that is the funding that we have left over from the prior year that aids in us being able to balance the next year's budget. Many times fund balance is left over out of personnel. We have about a 10% vacancy rate. So we don't have all positions filled 100% during the entire year. So because of that and the way that Fulton County chooses to budget, we fully fund all filled positions, and then we do partially fund the vacant positions, but based on the market and just based on life, many departments may not be able to fully fund their particular positions. So many people may ask, how do we end with that much money? It's because mostly personnel. So we began this year with $227 million. And then based on revenue, and I'll talk about some revenue projections coming up for FY 2025, but we were estimated to bring in about $884 million in revenue this year, which would mean that we would have over $1 billion in resources. Now, with an expenditure budget that was approved, and when we talk about budget, we're pretty much talking about the financial plan. So with a financial plan that was approved for 2024 of about $954 million and over $1 billion in possible available resources, we would end with $157 million. Now, the board has an ordinance pretty much, and I don't know if we could call that more state, but board has a resolution and a subsequent ordinance that says that we're going to hold, it's called 16.67%. And all that really means is we're going to have about 2 months of our expenses held in reserve. So when you see an ending fund balance amount, we are also taking into account that we'll have 2 months of expenditures left over. Now, that was the beginning of the year for our financial plan. During the mid-year, we try to true up and see how is revenue coming in. During the summertime, that's also when the millage rate discussion occurs. You have property values, the tax digest, you have all of these moving parts that occur. So the financial plan is approved at the beginning of the year. We spend our revenue, our tax digest, the billing, the year, and that's when we, looking at something that popped up on my screen, I apologize. So you have your millage rate, you have the revenue that we're expecting to receive, and then we true up, how is this revenue coming in? On the expenditure side, we also true up, how are things being spent? Are expenditures coming in higher than normal? Are expenditures coming in not what we approved? And then we have this projection. So on the right-hand side, you will see that we still have our beginning fund balance of $227 million, but we are expected to receive slightly higher than what was projected. And I can tell you what categories those were in. That's probably more in like our sales tax category. We're going to receive a little bit more revenue than what we projected at the beginning of the year. And then on the expenditure side, we're not trending as high as according to the financial plan. And there are some reasons for that. They're easily explainable, easily able to be seen. So we're coming in less than our financial plan, which ultimately we are projecting to have an ending fund balance of $220 million. That was overall current. Now we're going to move into the the topic of the hour, which is the 2025 proposed budget. There are several funds that are, clearly it's more than several, right, that are showing on the screen. And these are what we call appropriated funds. These are funds that have designated purposes, and they are reviewed and approved by the Board of Commissioners. Of most interest to the citizens, I would say, and draw your attention, is the general fund. So the general fund is coming in for our financial plan for this year being proposed at $973 million. Now, almost 974, it's 973.7. And that represents almost a 20 million, maybe $19.5 million increase from this year's financial plan. But why do I bring focus to the general fund? So the general fund is where the majority of our operations lie. So you'll hear a lot about what's happening in the general fund because many of the departments, pretty much most of the departments, sit there. Other appropriated funds that we have that you can see on the screen, we have our airport fund where we have the Fulton County Executive Airport. We also have water and sewer, so we provide water and sewer services. So we have not only a operational fund, which is our revenue fund, but you would also have the renewal fund where we have many investments in infrastructure. So we have also our FID fund. So that's the Fulton Industrial. That's the last unincorporated area in Fulton County. It has its own fund because many of these funds, once again, like I said, they have a designated purpose. So just really quickly, not to belabor the time, Animal Services, it operates as a business. We have many MOUs, so we have many contracts with the municipalities to provide animal services. So those revenues are going to its own fund, and therefore those expenditures are as well. We have the 911 emergency fund. We have a bond fund for where you all approved for us to build many libraries. So thank you for that. We also have a risk fund and also a conglomerate of other special revenue funds where the revenue is held for a designated purpose, such as when we have like federal forfeitures or we have certain fees that the courts pay that should be used only for that purpose. So overall, the appropriated funds are coming in and being proposed at over $1.4 billion. The remainder of this particular presentation, I have one more slide that speaks about all of the appropriated funds, but everything else is going to be to your point of interest, which is the general fund. So the next slide includes by our focus areas. We no longer have priorities because everything that the board approves and the services that we provide, they are now designated in focus areas so that you can see where our investments lie. So of the $1.4 billion, we have, let's just focus on the general fund specifically, almost 147. So we have $146.5 million that is designated and invested in our health and human services. We have $449 million that is invested toward justice and safety. We have almost 190 million, about 189.9 million that will be invested in our open and responsible focus area. We have $147.1 million that is invested toward infrastructure and economic development. And finally, we have $41.1 million that is toward our arts and library investment. So where we had the higher level of our appropriated funds, and then we're now going to our focus area of those appropriated funds. Finally, we're going to break down even further. You're hearing these categories. right? So we're going to break down even further what sits in those particular focus areas. What I wanted to cover just really quickly before we start to get into departments, I wanted to just reiterate to the citizens how this proposed financial plan or this proposed budget is to be funded. First and foremost, by property taxes. So whether it is property taxes, pretty much that is the meat. That is the hugest or the most huge portion of how we receive our revenue. Of taxes in general, it's really over 80%. So that's huge, and that's what differentiates the county from like cities. Cities may have the majority of their funding coming from sales tax and other. Ours, over 80% is in property taxes. So for 2025, we have about 789, almost $790 million that is projected from property taxes. Our next level that makes up our $915 million of revenue coming in for this financial plan. Our next includes local option sales tax. So we have about $23 million that is now 23 in comparison to almost 790 million. That's why I'm saying if our revenue that we're expected to bring in, and we'll talk about those quick assumptions, but if our revenue is like $915 million and 790 million of it represents some form of property tax, that is why this is so important. Okay, so we have our taxes, we have local option sales tax, we have other revenues such as fees, where there may be fines or fees or some other revenue that we receive. And then finally, we have what I started the meeting off with, or started the presentation off with, about fund balance. I'm going to back up and say this. Our financial plan is balanced. Okay, we'll start doing some math and you'll see it on the screen and you're like, wait a minute. We talked about just really quickly the general fund coming in at 973, almost 974 million. But here I am talking about the revenue side of only expecting about 915 million. 915, what gives? 915 versus, 974. It is balanced, and it is balanced with the excess of fund balance. So once again, where I said in personnel, vacant positions, how we're trending, that is why I spoke about our projection for this year. Based on our projection and the amount that we have that we would carry over into next year, coupled with the revenue that we are expected to receive next year, that's what allows us to propose an expenditure financial plan of $974 million, but it's balanced. And so the other assumption for property taxes in general, we based this assumption on a flat millage rate of 8.87 mils. We also had the assumption of a 3% billable growth in our tax digest. And then finally, based on when the millage rate is approved and that our tax commissioner sends out the tax bills and when we would receive them, we are estimating about a 96% collection rate. So that is how our revenue picture is wrapping up. This is just a little bit more detail about those categories. So I talked about the local option sales tax. Other revenues, I said that we had like maybe some fines, we had some fees. We're also using this year the interest that we earned from the American Rescue Plan. Those particular funds, the money sitting in the bank, earned interest. So we're bringing that into the general fund. And then there is a TAD that is expected to close. So that's a tax allocation district where those property taxes in that specific district, they don't make it to the county if the TAD is open. So I believe Atlantic Station is due to close. So any revenue that is increased and received, we're going to bring that into the general fund. On the expenditure side, and once again, this is just the higher level before we dig into the who and the what and the how much. So the proposed financial plan, once again, the proposed budget, we are proposing to fund our recurring operational needs. And what I mean, or what we mean by that, is the services that we provided. We want to, one, do no harm. Right? We want to be able to provide what it costs to maintain a consistent level of service. That is the first thing in proposing this budget. Next, we have some obligations that we have to meet, and this particular budget does cover our pension obligations. It also covers our debt service payments. So based on where we are in the quest to handle our inmate facilities, we have $10 million that is proposed in the plan for the jail capital improvement program, where we would issue bonds. We have money in the budget for that. When it comes to the personnel, which is very interesting because of the budget, usually about half relates to personnel, and then the other half relates to professional services contracts and things like that. So this year we are proposing that we fully fund all positions that are currently filled, and then we're making the inference, okay? I don't like to say assumptions. We're making the inference that everybody's not going to fill all of their vacancies on January the 1st. So because of that, we're going to partially fund the positions that are considered vacant. Next, we have inmate outsourcing. So we're going to we have money already in the financial plan to outsource inmate housing and to also run the ankle monitoring program. And then finally, I believe that we are on deck for a election. So I think it is and do not quote me, I think it's the public safety election, the public safety commissioner election. So we would have to fund that. And we are on schedule to have something budgeted for that. Next, we also we have a performance bonus in for our county employees. We have a contribution to our risk management fund. That was one of the other appropriated funds. We have contribution to Grady Hospital for not only the debt service payments that we make, but also to support operations for indigent care. And then we also have money for the freestanding emergency department that Grady was just approved for. So the county will contribute in support of that. Finally, we have money for like behavioral health, for school-based therapy. We have emerging adult reentry programs, pre-arrest diversion, and we also have support of the diversion center. Wrapping this up of interest, we do have money in our budget for the community services programs and also for the contract for services programs. So the CSP and the CFS, it's not going away. We do have money in the plan for that. We have money for capital, a county vehicle replacement program, and then we also have money to support the costs of doing business. So remember I said we wanted to maintain a consistent level of service. it costs more to provide the same thing. So where it costs more to provide the same level of service, we have funded for those increases. On the screen right now, you'll just see that we have it's just another way to kind of sum up everything that I've said thus far. So we're planning to end this year and begin next year with about $220 million. We have about 915 million in revenue. We have our financial plan of about 973, almost 974 million, which would end us with about 162 million dollars, which represents 2 months of expenses. Now here, this is a lot, okay? I'm going to preface with it's a lot, but when we talk about our different focus areas, I just want to mention many of the departments or the agencies that are included in those focus areas and what they do. So we're going to kick off with justice and safety. And so you have the sheriff's office that is in there. You have our courts. So Superior Court, you have our clerk of Superior Court, juvenile court, you have state court, you have our public defender, the police, the county marshal, the medical examiner, probate court. It goes on. And so the county, Fulton County, does so much. And so I wanted to break this out by the focus areas so that you could see your investments and what they are investing in. So this presentation will be made available, so I won't belabor it too much, but we have, once again, like our sheriff, our courts, we have emergency management, we have our solicitor. This is our justice and safety investment, and they are coming in at 449 million of the $974 million budget. Next, we have open and responsible. So in our open and responsible focus area, that's where our tax assessor, our tax commissioner, where I sit in the finance department, we have human resources, a lot of our internal services that keep the county running. Right. And so we really want to focus on being effective and efficient, and transparent. So you have a lot of those departments and agencies that sit there. Once again, human resources, purchasing, registration and elections, our contribution to the county attorney, our board of commissioners sit in open and responsible. External affairs, the county manager, our diversity and civil rights compliance, internal audit, clerk to the commission, that's open and responsible. And that is a proposed investment of $189.9 million. Next, we have our health and human services category. So here, this is where Ryan White, or the Department of HIV Elimination, it is mostly the federal grant, but we have some general fund support there. So you have Ryan White, you have DFACS. We provide support to DFACS for foster care, indigent burials, and we provide them a salary supplement and general assistance. We also have community development that sits in our health and human services focus area. So this is where you have your CSP programs. This is where you have your permanent and supportive housing, those type of programs that fall under the umbrella of community development. We also provide support to the Board of Health. So the county provides a contribution to their programs and also a salary supplement as well. So we give support to the Board of Health. Behavioral health, I mentioned about like school-based therapy and pre-arrest diversion type programs. Those type of citizen services sit under the behavioral health department, and that is in our health and human services focus area. We have a portion of non-agency, and what that pretty much represents would be if we have like a pension contribution or many things, or like a portion of utilities that is related to Health and Human Services. Next of interest would be senior services. So our adult day programs, our senior centers, your home delivered meals, that's in senior services. And then finally, what I spoke about earlier with our contribution to Grady Hospital for indigent care, that sits in our Health and Human Services focus area. Next, we have our infrastructure and economic development, and I apologize. I don't know why these white marks are on my presentation, but we're going to, I'll see about fixing that. However, what sits in infrastructure and economic development? You may see the word DREAM. That stands for our Department of Real Estate and Asset Management. So the maintenance of our buildings and transportation. We have information technology. So we have specifically as it relates to like cybersecurity or our IT applications and just that operations, anything technological, that is IT. We also have support for public works. Now, public works sits in several other appropriated funds, mainly in the water and sewer fund, that second one that I spoke about. So we do have general fund support that goes to public works, and that is their contribution in SSD, which is our unincorporated area. And then finally, we have economic development. So even though the county's arm for economic development would sit with Select Fulton, are the development authority, the county does have support for workforce development. It also has additional economic development activities. And finally, our Fulton Films program in bringing additional economic opportunities to Fulton County, that sits in our infrastructure and economic development focus
Hey,
area.
Sabrina, can you go back to that slide right quick?
Sure.
Because those white spots are over, looks like they're covering the budgets for each of those areas. And I don't know if you have the amounts for DREAM and IT and shared costs and
I-
economic development.
I do on my, that's why I don't know what's happening here. And Commissioner Arrington, I apologize. So when this is published, I'll make sure, and even for tomorrow, I'll make sure that this is correct. But for the point of reference for DREAM, which is our Department of Real Estate and Asset Management, they have a proposed budget of $45.6 million. For information technology, they have a proposed budget of $43.7 million. For public works. Like, I don't know why that's there because it is a proposed portion of $500,000. Economic development, they have a proposed budget of $1.5 million. So I will make sure that that's
What's the
correct.
shared cost in non-agency?
The shared cost and non-agency, let me see that really quickly, sir. Oops. Let me get that portion, please. And general area. The shared portion in non-agency, not justice. Open and responsible. For infrastructure and economic development, the shared portion in a non-agency includes, it's about $870,000.
Okay.
Yes, that's the shared portion, 870,000. So I will correct that.
Okay, wait, so you said DREAM was 45, IT was 44,
Mhm.
so that's like 90 million, but it's saying it's a group total of 147.
It is
So that
45.
90 plus 1 million for economic, or 1.5 for economic development, plus the 0.5, that would be about 92 million. So in order to
Yeah.
get to
Yeah,
in
it's
order to get to 147 million, we'd have to
we
have
need
another
more than
50
that.
million.
Thank you for bringing that to I'll make sure that it is corrected. I don't know, I offer no, excuses right now. I don't know what's happening. But what I will do is if we get to the remainder of the, presentation, I will go back and make sure that we set the record for what's listed there. Because I don't know why that's happening right now.
All right, and I was wondering on my team if we have a copy of the proposal that was presented at the last meeting, and maybe we have can look at that amount. But go right ahead.
Actually, no, Commissioner, and this is a portion of being an engaged citizen for our citizens. They'll be able to find this, and I apologize, I can't share my screen right now. But for the 17, it's on page 17 when we show them where to go onto our Fulton County ga.gov/budget. So opening, where were we? Infrastructure. We have the economic development at 1.5 million. We have oh, yeah, I'm all the way off. I apologize. So let me read this into the record. Infrastructure and economic development, we have $1.5 million that's being proposed. Information technology, we have $43.7 million that's being proposed. Public Works, we have 500,000. Real estate and asset management, we have $45.6 million. And then the non-agency portion, like I said, I'm all the way off. It is $55.7 million. It is not 800,000. It is $55.7 million. And I can give the.
You say that's page 17 in the budget book, or if they look online.
It is page 17. So I will make sure that I have that up once the last slide. I will go straight there. Did you need, and I think the other ones showed, but I will make sure that that is corrected and that it is shown and that it's available to the citizens.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. You're welcome. This thing is happening again. I don't know what's happening. I apologize. Let me just apologize and let me read into the record for, we'll start at the end for arts and libraries. For arts and libraries, so for the library operations, we have $31.5 million. That is their proposed budget. To the left, we have arts and culture. We have $6.1 million, and that is where our contract for services sits. And then we have the non-agency portion for arts and libraries of $3.5 million. And I can tell you that that is the shared pension costs. So in our arts and libraries focus area for a total investment of $41.1 million, we have library coming in, which includes operations for all of our libraries, plus support services and cooperative extension. We have $31.5 million. For arts and culture, we have $6.1 million, and then the non-agency shared portion is $3.5 million, and that represents a shared pension cost. That's super weird that that's happening. Really quickly, of a couple of the other funds that we briefly discussed, we have our airport fund. I spoke about the Fulton County Executive Airport. So that particular funding represents funding for public works. And then also we have fire. So there is an airport aircraft rescue. We've received federal funding, but we're also going to start and kick off. Don't call. We are starting, we have our firefighters and we have some fire trucks. We have the entire project that will be going forward as it is related to the airport expansion. Next, we have water and sewer. So that is represents the public works. We have some meter readers that are out of that budget. I spoke about those that provide services versus the investment in the actual like facility. This particular fund or these two funds, they operate as a business. So what that means is you have user fees, and then those are what support the actual expenditures. So it does include a 5% increase in the rates, and that is going to last through 2025. And then there will be a new rate study that occurs in 2025 for implementation in 2026. Finally, the last unincorporated area of Fulton County. So we call that FID, Fulton Industrial District. That includes support for police, public works, the fire services contract. So for fire, I talked about fire that we were kicking off at the airport. But in the unincorporated area, we have a contractual arrangement with the city of South Fulton. And so they provide our fire services in that area. Oh, and then there's another portion that we have for continued economic development of, we call it Renew the District. So there is budget there. Now, finally, I just wanted to inform the citizens. We pretty much start this process in the summertime. And so it takes a lot of input, and we're happy that the citizens are here and that they do have questions, or they will be able to submit their cares, their concerns. But we start preparing the next year's budget. Pretty much we kick it off late spring, early summer. This time, because of our cyber incident, we were a little bit late. So we started receiving our capital requests in the late summertime. And then we make sure that we train our departments. One item that I wanted to bring up was that this is a proposed financial plan, right? And so we need the input of everyone. What we took time with the departments was, it's not just increasing your budget, you know, just not increasing. We want to make sure that departments understand what's in their budget. They know the services that they provide. I can't really speak from a programmatic point of view, right? Because I'm not forward facing that way, but I try to connect with the departments so that I can understand more than it just being a number on the page. On the flip side, many departments are used to just providing the services and making sure that they have the sufficient funding. So we took extra time this year to make sure that we review in detail, not just the people that they have, but also the services that they provide, so that we can marry the two. Okay, so we've been working at this for quite a while to get to the point of proposing a budget that we're statutorily required to do by November the 15th. We had our required public hearing on December the 4th. So that was last week at the board meeting. And once again, we always appreciate the opportunity to present this budget to the citizens, because it's their budget. It used to be our budget. I moved out of Fulton a little bit ago, but this is our money. You know, this is the citizens. And so these are the investments that we are proposing. So what is next? What's next, of course, is for us to speak and continue to go into detail about the budget. But legally, what's next would be the adoption of the budget in January. So that can happen at either the first or the second board meeting. The first board meeting, we are going to present a revised proposed budget, and we're going to update everything. Remember, I started with these were our projections, and this is where we thought we're going to end up. We're going to update all of our numbers to reflect how we truly ended the year, what that looks like, and taking into account the guidance from the board and, what our citizens say, we'll have a revised proposed budget at the first board meeting, and we'll have additional discussion. But legally, the 2025 financial plan or the 2025 proposed budget can be adopted at the first or the second board meeting in January. Finally, I wanted to just give the citizens some resources so that they can stay engaged. Step one was showing up here. But on the open transparency portion of the Fulton County website, we have open budget. So you're able to go to openbudget.fultoncountyga.gov, and where we talked about, or where I spoke about, let's say, information technology, you can drill down to see specifically how much is in software licenses, how much is in salaries, how much is in, contingency, how much is for travel, how you are able to drill down to that level of detail for all funds, all departments. That's on our open budget portal, which is a part of our open government on our financial transparency. We also have what's called open checkbook. If you want to see where your money is going, it's not just a number. If you want to see who got paid, the check number, whether it was cashed or not, that information is available on our open government portal as well. Finally, what I was holding up in my blurry background would be the 2025 budget. I know that I went super portions, I was higher level, other portions, super detailed, but this information that's available in our proposed budget, there's a lot of narrative, there's a lot of numbers. And so we are happy to further break that down and get to what is most important, not only to really what's most important to you as the citizens. I think that wraps up my particular presentation. This just shows what's in our proposed budget, and it shows the breakout by department. Open budget is where you would drill down to find an even deeper level of detail. This just shows you open checkbook, what it looks like, who our top vendors are. This is what our open government portal looks like. So you would click on your open budget platform. And this is what our open budget looks like. And finally, I know that was a lot, but I want to thank you all. Thank you for the opportunity to present the budget, to discuss the budget, and give you time to digest the budget. Commissioner Arrington, once again, my deepest gratitude for just putting us out here on this platform to be able to reach the citizens in this manner. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Wonderful, fabulous presentation. Thank you to you, Hakeem, Sharon, County Manager, and all of the staff for taking the time to be as diligent as you have been in proposing the budget. And I guess we will open it up. Looks like we do have a few people in attendance to see if there are any questions that you all have about the presentation. And looks like Dorsha put a link in the chat for anyone that wants to go to the open government page for Fulton County. You can look inside and see that as well. So we'll open it up for questions. If you have questions, please type them into the chat and we'll try to respond to them as best we can. Questions, comments, criticisms, concerns? We take it all. All right, well, it doesn't look like we have any questions, so not seeing it. Sabrina, that usually means you did a darn good job.
Oh, thank
Because
you so much.
Usually people will have questions, and so if there are no questions, that means that you were very thorough and competent as always. So, thanks to you and your team. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to click on the link for the open government budget, so you can see the proposed 2025 budget. Again, this is your Fulton County budget. And so we want to make sure that your priorities are included in this budget. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thanks to Sabrina, um, FGTV staff, and all of my staff, Dorsha, Richard, and Jarrell. Um, we'll see you all tomorrow at Wolf Creek Library. Thanks again. God bless you and good night.